D'Antoni won't call timeout and let the Raptors set up their D. The crowd on its feet here at the Air Canada Center. Lin puts it up. Bang! Jeremy Lin from downtown, and the Knicks take the lead.
Jeremy Lin. He's someone we're all familiar with in the basketball community, whether it be the period of time where he was shocking the entire world in what we would call Linsanity. There was his clutch time buzzer beaters that were reminiscent of the calm and cool you might expect from a top NBA point guard. You might remember when he was calling off screens from the legend Kobe Bryant. In more recent memory, there was his very emotional interviews. Or you might know him as quietly getting a ring with the Raptors, which, unfortunately, many people would not hesitate to call into question whether or not he even deserved it. Jeremy Lin's story has been like few others. He spent roughly a decade bouncing around teams in the NBA and now China, and he's had more than his fair share of big ups and big downs. Some call his story a tragedy, others a fairy tale, but most people say he was treated unfairly, and has been since he was in high school, when as a top athlete in the state of California, didn't receive a single scholarship. Many also blame the NBA for treating him this way, or the Knicks system. I've seen the finger pointed at Carmelo in regards to some of his more self-centered tendencies, and of course, it would be naive to not point out that many would also suggest racism, both subtle and blatant. Many Jeremy Lin fans would also point to a harshly underrepresented Asian population in the NBA, making up just 0.2% while representing 5.6% of the population in the US and 60% of the world population. But it is also quite possible Jeremy Lin simply wasn't up to the elite standards of the NBA, although I do consider this the least likely of the scenarios, and I'll show you guys why. But regardless of why Jeremy Lin has yet to establish a solid footing and an identity on any team in the NBA in the past decade, based off of some of the more recent news, one thing we can be sure of at this point is that his story is still far from over, and becoming a key player, or at least contributing and taking part in an NBA franchise, can still happen, at least if it were up to him.
Yo, what's up guys, it's Andre, and in this video, not only do I try to tell the story of Jeremy Lin, I also add my prediction of what I think is the most likely scenario to come in the next few months. I'm also curious to hear what you guys have to say, because in the video I asked the question whether or not a Linsanity number 2 is possible, and I think that that's at least conceivable, just like the fact that Jeremy Lin could never play on an NBA team again is also conceivable. But I think that's what makes Jeremy Lin so interesting in the first place. So just let me know what you guys think in the comments, and let's get back to the video.
Well, I think we should start this story in 2012, December 27th to be exact. This is when the Knicks would sign Jeremy Lin. And because his contract wasn't guaranteed, it did appear likely the Knicks would eventually waive him. And nobody really cared about any of these things. However, just a few months and only 55 minutes of total playing time later, on February 4th, 2012, and after the Knicks winning just 2 of their last 13 games, were now ready to switch things up. It was obvious at this point D'Antoni becomes desperate, and he would utilize Lin. Jeremy Lin would then drop 25 points, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds, and lead the Knicks to a 99-92 win. This would ultimately set the stage for what we now refer to as Linsanity. Another 2 wins later, Lin playing major roles in both of them, comes February 8th, 2012. What many also consider the official start to Linsanity.
New York, and Lin gets the rest of the night off with 23 points and 10 assists. Our Crop Metcalf player of the game.
Just 2 days later, in Madison Square Garden, he drops 38 points against the Lakers and Kobe Bryant.
And he's hearing the MVP chants.
The other factor in all of this, Mike, is that he's shooting over 58%. I mean, that's incredible, along with the fact that he's averaging over 25 points.
And he is so energized,
yes.
His teammates, Hubie.
Oh, it's great. It's been great for basketball in New York, no doubt about it. And it's been great for the fans.
It's the most points by a Knick this year, and the Knicks will win it. Linsanity continues here at Madison Square Garden. as the undrafted point guard from Harvard electrifies MSG once again. And the hero from Harvard.
At this point, surely it can't get much better for Jeremy Lin. We were in the middle of one of the biggest turnarounds for an athlete and team in sports history. But again, just 4 days later, this happens.
Lin puts it up. Bang! Jeremy Lin from downtown, and the Knicks take the lead. Amazing here at the Air Canada Center. 0.5 of a second remaining. Linsanity continues.
But it was all short-lived. Unfortunately, this epic game would also mark the beginning of the end of Linsanity. D'Antoni would resign 1 month later on March 14th, and after a 2-6 stretch, which notably had Carmelo back in the lineup, during this time, Lin would put up less than his previous average numbers in the games that followed, and on March 24th, a torn meniscus caused him to exit a game against Detroit, and he has yet to wear a Knicks jersey ever since. He would go on to play for 8 different teams over the next 8 years, as Linsanity would fade into somewhat of a distant memory. After the 2019 NBA season, Jeremy Lin would find himself waiting for a phone call as a free agent yet again. The phone call would never come. Jeremy Lin would explain that it felt as if the NBA had given up on him.
Then free agency came around. Yeah.
At this moment, now well over a year since that speech, Jeremy Lin has just come off a very solid season playing in China. He would debut in October of 2019 and he dropped 40 points. It felt like somewhat of a statement and, in my opinion, what might end up being a foreshadowing. He would end this season just a few months ago, recording an average of 22.3 points, 5.7 rebounds, and 5.6 assists a game. He also was named the CBA Defensive Player of the Year. And according to him, he still has a lot left in his tank and even thinks the best can still be ahead of him. But still, the question remains, will Jeremy Lin ever find himself on an NBA roster again? And furthermore, is a Linsanity number 2 possible? I've always found Jeremy Lin to be a leader, and especially offensively, at least when he got the chance to show us. I think he would play best on a team with few to no ball-dominant guards, since that's his ideal role. He's a scorer that's most effective when the ball is in his hands. Another defining trait of his that plays really well into this is his fearlessness. He's not afraid to fail. I mean, how often have we seen rookies with a lot to prove calling off screens and taking clutch time shots and making them? It's pretty rare. Jeremy Lin handles pressure extremely well, and he wants the ball in his hands when the game's on the wire. This is simply something you can't teach and is a rare trait, even amongst NBA players. He's also an extremely hard worker and has shown us he's willing to give 100% effort in what he does. And because of this, his teammates and fans are able to rally around him. Jeremy Lin is also humble. He lets his game do the talking. This is also a trait in the NBA that's become increasingly rare nowadays, but has always been the mark of someone special, regardless of the sport. Generally, for an athlete on the cusp of making a team, confidence, hard work, and being grounded are normally the X factors coaches look for when making their decision, and Jeremy Lin has that going for him. I think it's really just a matter of his game and what he could bring to the table in certain team dynamics. We do also have to consider that, number 1, this year's free agency pool isn't great. Number 2, with the current pandemic, teams will be looking to cut spending. And number 3, Lin has already proven he can excel in the NBA, so again, for all those reasons, he could make a lot of sense for any team to sign. And as of right now, there are rumors of a few teams thinking of doing just that. Since Lin's decision to leave China and again pursue his NBA dreams, the Knicks, Warriors, Rockets, Clippers, Celtics, Nets, and Hawks have expressed varying degrees of interest in him. We're not going to get into any of these for now because they're hardly substantiated and are all just rumors. For now, Although, it would be interesting to see Lin get picked up by the Warriors. The Warriors took a chance on him in 2010 after he was overlooked by every team in that year's draft. And he grew up and played basketball in the Bay Area, so in a lot of ways, if he were to play and do well in their system, his story would come full circle, and it could make for a happy ending in an otherwise rocky and largely inconclusive history for Lin. In the plainest of terms, and what I consider to be the most likely scenario, I think he's an average to good shooter. His point guard skills and IQ are league ready, but his defense at times is questionable. All in all, I think he is ready for the NBA and could act as a reliable scorer in someone's second unit. But above everything else, and whether any team is willing to take a chance on Jeremy Lin or not, I think the main lesson his career has taught us is that despite so many rejections, Lin is still tirelessly fighting for his NBA dream, and I think that's something we can all appreciate about him. I would like to take just a second to thank our sponsor, Infinity Wake Aquabags. Hydrokinetic training is one of the best ways to develop motor skills, muscle equilibrium, and proprioception, things we preach in a lot of our videos. You may have seen D Rose, Drew Holiday, and Pascal Siakam using them on social media, and for a limited time only, enter promo code Courtical at checkout for $10 off. Obviously, you'd be supporting the channel by doing this as well. So thank you, and the link's going to be in the description. From your favorite 50,000 subscriber hopefuls, Courtical Hoops, thank you, and see you on the next one.